So welcome. Unlike my other videos, you're not really going to see me, I'm just going to talk, and as you see by the title, let's just jump straight into it. So Brian Samuel Epstein was born on 16th September 1934 to Harry and Malika Epstein. His mother Malika was also known to their friends and family members as Queenie, as this was due to the name Malika being the Hebrew word for queen. Brian grew up on Rodney Street in Liverpool. His family owned a furniture store in the city, but while he was growing up, his family bought the business next door to their store. This business would be the North End Road Music Store, also known as NEMS. At age 16, in 1950, Brian began to work in a family music store. This is where personally I believe his love for music really began, but the position would not be where he would stay for long, as soon after he would become a dress designer, which his father did not agree with. But sadly for Brian, again, this job did not last long, as at the age of 18 he had been conscripted into the military, where he would serve in the army for 10 months and was discharged under the guise of being emotionally and mentally unfit for service. The real truth behind his dismissal from the army was that he had asked a tailor to make him an officer's uniform, which he used to use on nights out in London, where he would go drinking in bars and clubs and pretend to be an officer. Unfortunately for him, he was arrested by military police. He would avoid a court-martial though by agreeing to see an army psychiatrist, which would then discover his hidden homosexuality. When he returned to Liverpool in 1954, he was put in charge of one of the family's branches of the furniture store. Upon becoming a successful salesman for the family store, he managed to persuade his family into letting him train as an actor. He would do his training at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. Once he had passed his entrance exams and auditions, he would be accepted into the school. While studying at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, he had become a classmate of Albert Finlay, I hope I said that right, Susan York, Peter O'Toole, but once again he would not last long as he dropped out in his third term. 1 year after returning from the military, he would find himself back in Liverpool working for his family's business. This time though, at age 21, he was made director of a North End music store. When his father decided to open another branch of NEMS store, Brian would be placed in charge of the ground floor. The new store would be opened on Liverpool's Great Charlotte Street. Under Brian's guidance, the business would grow from selling pianos, gramophone records and wireless radios. This would help lead the business to become one of the largest music outlets brands in the north of England. Okay, I know, you want to know about when he met the Beatles, but look, we're getting to that point, just a few more bits. Due to his success, he would be put in charge of a new branch of NEMS on 12 to 14 Whitechapel. At the same time, he would ask a business contact, Billy Harry, who was the editor of Mersey Beats magazine, if he could write a music column. For his first column, which would appear in the third issue on 3rd of August 1961 under the title Record Released by Brian Epstein of NEMS. So yes, okay, finally we get to Brian Epstein and the Beatles. I just thought I would do this right. You know, he is the fifth Beatle after all. So this is supposedly how the story goes. 3 o'clock on Saturday, October 28th, 1961, an 18-year-old called Raymond Jones, wearing jeans and a black leather jacket, walks into a record store in Whitechapel, Liverpool, and says, "There's a record I want. It's My Bonnie, and it was made in Germany. Have you got it?" Behind the counter, Brian Ems, 27, director of the store. He shook his head. "Who's the record by?" he asked. Raymond responds, "Well, you won't have heard of it." "You won't have heard of them," said. "It's by a group called the Beatles." Whitechapel store just happens not to be that far from the Cabin Club in Matthew Street. So, at lunchtime on the 9th of November, he takes a walk down and catches their lunchtime show. Then suddenly, after performance, while the Beatles are resting after their show, in their dressing room, in walks Brian Epstein, who wants to meet the group. Epstein at first thought the name of the Beatles sounded silly when he saw it on the Liverpool concert bill. In asking his staff about them, though, he was surprised to learn that they were among frequent customers, sometimes browsing nibs between shows at the Cavern. So, one afternoon, on the 3rd December 1961, Epstein posed an idea of managing the Beatles. John Lennon, George Harris and Peter Best arrived late for the meeting as they had been drinking at the Grapes pub in Matthew Street. McCartney also did not arrive on time for the meeting. He had just got out of the bath. Harrison would remark to Epstein, though, "He might be late, but he'll be very clean." Once all the members of the band were assembled and there, Epstein would go on in the meeting and ask, "Do you have a manager?" After learning that they did not, he said, "It seems to me that, with everything going on, someone ought to be out there looking after you." He had further meetings with the group on the 6th of December and the 10th of December in 1961. The 24th of January in 1962, the Beatles would sign a 5-year contract with Epstein. Epstein would earn 10 to 15% of their income. They signed a contract in October 1962, which gave Epstein 15 to 20 or even 25% of the revenue, depending on how much he helped the band earn. The Beatles would then share an income after various expenses had been dedicated. Epstein then formed a management company, NEMS Enterprises, telling his parents that managing the group was only a part-time occupation and would not interfere with family business. Quickly after becoming the Beatles' manager, he would go about a series of changes to the band, such as how they dress and how they look, changing them from jeans and leather jackets to iconic suits and getting them to get haircuts and changing their performance on stage. After this, he would go and set off to London with the group, where he would take them from meeting to meeting with different record labels. Eventually, Brian secured an audition at EMI's Abbey Road studio, where, after the audition with George Martin, would sign the band to the EMI label. Unfortunately, though, part of the contract was that Peter Best did not pass the audition, so it became Epstein's job to fire him from the band. He would replace him with Ringo Starr upon the band's request. Paul McCartney would later say, "If anyone was the fifth Beatle, it was Brian." In 1966, the Beatles officially would retire from live performances, and Brian Epstein would begin to lose his influence over the Beatles. At this point, unfortunately, he would begin to lead more and more into his dependence upon amphetamines, which he developed a taste for in the early days of working with the band. He would be more involved with the London drug scene of the 60s at the time, but at the time of recording Sgt. Pepper's album, he would make great efforts to kick in his drug habit, including spending time in London's Priory, Putney. 27th of August 1967, Brian Epstein would pass away. The coroner would rule his death an accidental drug overdose, most likely due to sedatives being mixed with alcohol. The Beatles would not attend his funeral out of respect for Brian and his family, as they did not want to attract media attention and fans flocking to his funeral. They, however, did attend a memorial service at the New London Symphony. Brian Samuel Epstein is buried in the Kerrsdale Jewish Cemetery in Liverpool. I think I've butchered that name. I do apologise if I have. Anyway, here are some other facts about Brian Epstein. While managing the Beatles, he would also manage Celia Black, Greg and the Peacemakers, Billy J. Kramer, Joey Quickly, and whilst his NEMS Enterprise lineup included the Bee Gees, Jimi Hendrix and Cream. He also served as the best man for Ringo Starr at his wedding in 1965. In 2016, Brian Epstein would be inducted into the Personal Managers Hall of Fame. Anyway, that brings us to the end. I hope you've enjoyed this brief overview of Brian Epstein and his time with the Beatles. What I do have to say about him is he's possibly one of the greatest managers of all time, as he managed to achieve so much in a short length of time and brought us the Beatles. So please like, subscribe and leave a comment below. If you want more videos like this, make sure to hit the notification bell. See you next time.